Well, hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today Magazine at recoverytodaymagazine.com, where first and foremost, we are a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself, a loved one, or you're actively in recovery, maybe a short time or maybe a long time, you're going to find all kinds of information related to topics on addiction, recovery, codependency, and really just living a happy and successful and sober life. My name is Rob Hanley, and I'm the executive producer, editor-in-chief of Recovery Today Magazine, and I'm joined by another super cool new friend, interesting guest. His name is Rami Even-Esh, a.k.a. Kosha Dillz. And Kosha is he's all about doing really, really cool songs, but the thing that caught my attention in hip-hop and rap and everything like that is that he does them in English, Hebrew, and Spanish all together. He grew up in New York, New Jersey, kind of the whole hip-hop scene there with all of that. Started rapping at 17. Now he's worldwide. He's got residences in L.A. and in Tel Aviv, and just wanted to bring him out. And he's been, oh, by the way, also been clean sober for 15 years. So, hey, man, thanks for jumping on, bro. Thanks for taking a minute to be with us here today.
I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let me jump right into it, man. Like, give me your story, dude. I mean, it was already when I saw you on Instagram and we were going back and forth, I'm like, this guy's really cool, man. I mean, actually, one thing I'll tell you so I don't forget is I love one of the things even on your profile, I think that you said is like, you respond to all comments, like on your, on your thing. I was like, I don't see that too much. Okay, cool, man. So, I shot you a little note.
And boom, I responded. It's an easy commitment, honestly, responding, because a lot of people are like, they hit you up and then no one hits them back, and they're like, well, that fell on deaf ears, and then they judge you. And I think there's at least as a public figure or someone that's creating music, people want to talk to you. So
yeah, right on.
But I'll get into it. So 17, was on stage for the first time. At the New Rican Poets Cafe, rapped under the name Kosha Dillz, came up as a high school wrestler, soccer player, college, 18, 19, went to Division I Rutgers Wrestling, got arrested for the first time with drugs at my 18th birthday, tried to prevent my parents from finding out, then went back and got arrested with 7 felonies for ecstasy when I was 19. Had to do time on my first offense, and instead of running the other way, I ended up doing more drugs and just, as a normal addict would. Many people stop. I just kept going. So I turned 18 in jail, turned 21 behind bars, and then I got clean at 22, turning 23, where I was in jail again. I was caught in a sting operation where I was selling and boom, ran from the police and tried to run back into school and didn't get caught with a specific amount of drugs that miraculously disappeared off the new set of 6 felonies that I received that day. And boom.
6 all at one time? They just charged you with everything. Conspiracy.
Yeah, so all of it. So, let's just hit them with everything because, they'll plead guilty to 2 of them. Just get them with everything that way. I don't know. I think it's like Street Fighter 2 or something. When a cop arrests you, they're hit you with all the special moves and you get all the extra points. I think that's what it's like.
That's what it is, man.
I don't know. I can't tell you exactly. But I pretty much now, looking back, I pretty much deserved everything that I was doing. So it wasn't like I was innocent. That's the difference.
Got it.
And then I got clean, man. So it's a little quick 5 years.
So where and how did you get clean? How did that happen? Was it court ordered or what was the deal?
No, so I was introduced to the room sort of after I was on bail for those charges that I got arrested for selling ecstasy when I was about 19, 20 years old. I ended up having to be introduced and get meeting list signed, and I did time, and then I came out, and then I was sort of going to programs and therapy, and they were saying to go to these meetings, but I was still getting high at the time, and I was sort of just I was that guy at the meeting that was you know, raising his hand and talking, and you're like, I just sell drugs, I don't have an issue. You know, I was just talking all the time. And it was really funny because I slowly, you know, got more introduced to it. And by the last time, when I was 22 turning 23 on my third arrest, I had a big bag of drugs in my pocket, and I was selling cemetery plots at the time, door to door. That's how morbid I was.
Wow, man, I never knew there was such a thing.
Yeah, and honestly, you could listen to this story in rap, and I'll give you the song. It's the link in my bio. It's called 15 Years Later, and I wrote it about being clean after 15 years, and it was a story of basically how the last day, what my life was like before I got arrested and then got clean. So when I dropped this, I ran back into the classroom from a school zone, and if anyone's ever been arrested before, the thing is supposed to run out of a school zone because the school zone is going to give you a second-degree felony versus a third-degree, which is mandatory time, 5 to 10 years. So I was in handcuffs, and I got a big bag of coke, over half an ounce, which is an extra in the cocaine laws in New Jersey. It's more of a penalty. And I think other states as well, that's a threshold that elevates you to a
pretty serious offender.
Versus a third degree to a second degree, yeah. And I was just revisiting all these laws because, over years they changed. I mean, marijuana's become legal, and, the first time I got arrested, marijuana was extremely illegal. And guns were drawn over, a joint. So just over the scale of so many years of being, clean, things change. But cocaine laws always stay the same, just for anyone out there wondering if they're going to change or not. If you get caught with that, you're definitely going to jail. So that happened, and I felt there was some God shot that hit me, and I'm like, oh, my God, this was not meant to happen, or it was meant to happen. And I immediately lost a desire to, get high again. And I was, kind of hoping that something would happen like this, or that I would go back to meetings, because I was sort of in this it was different than my physical drug bottom. My physical drug bottom came around the second arrest, and before I went in to do time for that first offense, technically, my first felonies offense. And this one was a spiritual bottom, and I was ready, and I stayed clean. I stayed clean ever since. That's July 30th, 2004.
Wow, man!
So, yeah, man.
Congratulations! 15 years that's a long time, man. That's awesome, bro.
It's crazy because in the hip hop industry, there's a lot of drugs and a lot of drinking, a lot of just socially acceptable usage of anything,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my friends have gone out and stayed in, and gone out and stayed in, and being public with your recovery is sort of puts you out there. As in this situation, it's connected us, but in many other situations, it separates me from the other people. And not that I'm trying to promote it, but because other people are going through their own internal experiences, they know that when they see me, it triggers their guilt and things of that nature, so they don't want you around, so they wouldn't want to technically work with you. Or you might not get calls from them. I'm just going through it right now with a friend that's oh, man, he doesn't call you back. And you're probably because he's going to feel guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an interesting journey, but I think it's always better off that I stay on this side than the other side.
Yeah, for sure. There's no question about it.
Because then I wouldn't be able to do the interview with you.
That's right, man. See, there's a bonus. Now I'm thinking about it, though. I mean, probably one of the biggest guys in the industry, though, Eminem, is real out about about his sobriety. I think he's got 10 years or maybe longer or something.
Eminem has 14 years, I want to say, or 13 years. Macklemore has a bunch of time. Macklemore's been in and out, but definitely Seattle guy, just like yourself. And I've known him for a long time, and he's pretty much the only superstar who's really publicly put out his relapses and recovery all out there. And I love him for it because it's inspirational. He's I fucked up, and I'm gonna rap about it. And what, and he owns it. And it's hard to own your stuff, just in general as a human, versus owning your stuff in front of that many people,
Well, you know, obviously we live in a different age where like we can connect like this really easy. Here you're sitting in your car. We meet on social media, you know, and we have this kind of a conversation. But I find, you know, all the time people ask, you know, what do I do? And, you know, I'll say, well, we have a, you know, Sobriety Addiction, Sobriety magazine. And it's so different than how it might have been if we had this kind of, you know, than like 20 years ago or 25 years ago, you know, back when it would have been like, well, go to Betty Ford or something. Everybody, you screw up and you go to rehab for 30 days. And it was kind of like, you know, why can't they? Or it's those kind of people. But now, unfortunately, I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, the stigma, I think, has really started to change a great deal. Where, you know, people are like, I talked to a guy this morning, and it was about the magazine, and he said, you know, my son. And you hear those kind of things a lot now. And then they're, instead of, you know, being like, oh, that's interesting, it's more like, hey, maybe we can connect, or maybe there's something that you can, you know, that kind of thing. So I think the more that people are, I think the more that they're open and transparent about you know, life and stuff, the better for everybody. I mean, when all the pretense is down and all the bullshit, we're just people, and everybody struggles with the same kind of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at. So 15 years. So how long were you actually in for total? I mean, that's a little bit of a rap sheet.
Yeah. Well, for me to be quite honest, I mean, I probably started using heavy 15, and then at age 15, and then like when I was turning 20 to 21, I was only in for like 3 months, and then I was out, and I was on parole for 6 months, and then I got arrested again probably a year and a half later. Is it about a year and a half later? Yeah, about a year and a half later, and then did another week there because I was waiting, because at this point, you know, everyone was just leaving me in jail. No one was bailing me out. And then I went right from there to rehab in Keyport, New Jersey, at this place called Endeavor House, which I don't even think is a rehab anymore. But then I went there, and then I transferred over to another spot, and then I was in an Oxford house for a couple months, and the Oxford house, sort of like a 3/4 house, not a halfway house technically. And then after that, you know, I stayed on probation for like 2.5 more years, and then they gave me early release. And
good for you,
then I've been, yeah.
And now you're traveling.
I was definitely in a system of like arrests from like 1999 to like 2004 to then 2008. 2008 is like when I think I got off probation and stuff like that. So I mean, I was kind of caught up in that for a pretty long stretch.
I mean, there's a couple of things that I think of, like when we talk about when we were putting Recovery Today together, and one of the first things in terms of like, well, what is it? And it's still our line today is Recovery Today is a magazine of hope. And I feel like it's kind of the thing that people have the most deficit in is that they feel hopeless. And you know, nobody likes a story where, you know, you're born rich and good looking or something like that, and you go on to a super successful life. Everybody likes a rocky story. And
yeah,
it's really an overcoming adversity that everybody, you know, rallies behind. They don't care how many times you got knocked down, as the saying is. You just want to know that you got back up in the end. So when I hear stories of, you know, not only somebody that survived addiction and things like that because it's life-threatening, but then also went through the trauma of incarceration and stuff like that, and then turned it around where you've got influence and notoriety and freedom, and you're traveling around and doing cool things and expressing yourself.
Yeah.
It's something I think we all in the recovery community really applaud, and I think anybody really, man. We're all about second chances, so it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point in my life where I was on this street called Hamilton Street, and, you know, there's guys ready to shoot up in front of me in my own house, and I'm kicking them out because I feel like I'm better than them and I'm not shooting at anything, so I'm like on a higher echelon. And, you know, there was caste systems on what levels of drugs you did, and then, you know, I was speaking Spanish, and, you know, I was like, and because I spoke Spanish, and I like befriended these guys that were drug dealers, and this was all while I was like on bail from the ecstasy charges that I got. And
not even on parole, on bail? You're on bail.
This is when I was on bail before
wow.
I went in at this time. And the police came to arrest a guy, and there was like under federal marshals were like watching my place, and this guy, I guess he had killed somebody, and then I had to go to the lawyer's office, and the lawyer's like, you're going to do time on your first offense because of the people that you're associated with. So my addiction went from like, oh man, you just kind of messed up and you got caught up in some stuff, to like, you're really deep in it now, and you're definitely doing a long time, and they're trying to give you 5 years on your first offense to make an example out of you.
Wow.
And somehow we got, 9 months. And it was just like, I don't know, man, it was just like, there's so much extra to worry about, and now being clean, it's like my problems are way
so let me,
less. And anyways, yeah.
Let me ask a little bit about like your music and stuff like that, because as you said, like the song that's in your bio is your story. How do you kind of see, either from your own music or maybe everybody else, what's going on now, or Macklemore, whoever it is, rap, hip hop is something that can really influence in a positive way. I think there's so much negative influences, but influence in a positive way, not only just about life, but to stay clear of addiction and drugs and things like that.
I mean, put it this way, like, honestly, like, I honestly, like, when people start rapping about recovery, I think it's corny, because I've been rapping for so long, and I, like, come from a true school of, like, rap, hip-hop from the East Coast. So when I would hear, what you were rhyming about, I've gone through phases. I was rapping before the internet existed. Like, there were message boards. I was rapping before Instagram. So before tags and likes, I was in the streets trying to, like, rap for other rappers and just get respect that way. And as time went on, I realized that I was making certain kinds of music, and then I was making other kinds of music that interested me, and then I was doing sort of Jewish influence like stuff that was just coming from people that I met, and I started touring with this guy, Modest Yahoo, and I met him through a friend in recovery that knew me when I was getting high, and I performed with him in front of like 1,000 people. So now I have, like, I was on parole, like rapping, or was it one of those things, one of the probations or parole, and I remember him being like, I was like, wow, like, this is another world of, like, recovery gives you extra gifts. So now I'm like, this other Jewish thing, I didn't even realize the Kosha Dillz thing had nothing to do with religion. It was more about me of being afraid to be who I was, and people were making fun of me, and I wanted to stand up for myself and battle.
The fact that you're Jewish, like in hip hop, or what? What do you mean? I don't understand.
And back then, yeah, well, people, when I had my name was Kosha Dillz, people would make fun of it. And in battle rap back then, people just made fun of everybody in the sense, like, disrespect you, and like, that was the goal. Like, that was what rap was. Like, fuck you and your mom and your entire family, and I hope you die and get hit by a car. And, like, I was encouraged to say that. Now, we have feelings, we're emotional, everyone's, like, trying. There's so many subgenres of things, right? And that genre still exists in battle rap. But I realized that I was like, wow, comedy and storytelling is just a little bit different for me. So as I got clean longer, my songs I wrote at 7 months clean were different than the songs I wrote at 7 years clean, were different than the songs I wrote at 14 years clean. Because the internet evolved. My friends who were just rapping in front of 50 people evolved into rapping in front of 5,000 and 50,000 people. Right, like Macklemore, we did shows and there were 70 people, and now he's doing shows where there's 45,000 and 60,000, and I see that happen in front of my eyes. And me, it's been interesting because I've kind of stayed the same and just stayed in it, and I've rapped in front of 10,000 people, and I've rapped in front of 10 people, but the interesting thing is what I use to deal with my own vices and own depression and own anxiety and own addiction and all my inner demons is not technically what somebody else would be like. Oh, I didn't know you go through that. Like, maybe I was making a bunch of songs about sweatpants and garage sales and to make people happy and laugh to deal with my dark stuff. So, to make a song about my real story is very difficult for me because, I don't know, it's just odd. It's just odd for me because it's not part of my character.
What do you write about now? What kind of stuff do you write about now?
I'm experimenting all the time, man, because I feel like I don't have that big of a following that someone's going to be like, I don't like that, and we're not following. Like, I'm not going to lose a bunch of business. So, I mean, I just did this song 15 years later because I wanted to make a song about that incident that happened to me that I told you about, running from the police, and I was set up by these kids, and I was running into class, and I'm like, wow, this song is, like, so dope. I don't care if only 1,000 people hear it for the rest of my life. Like, I'm just happy I made that song. Maybe I could have made it better, and maybe it could have been mixed better, but now the way you're releasing music, and back then I was releasing a song called Hairy Chest of Hollywood and chainsaw music and cutting off people's brains, and I've made songs about sweatpants and garage sales and hanging out on cellular phones, and I've had a song in a Super Bowl commercial that was about, it was a barking dog, and it's all over the place, right? So for a fan to leech onto it, it's not a lot, but when we talk about telling our story, I look at the song I just released, and I'm like, well, hey, now there's a piece of recovery in every story in bits and pieces that I like to put in there, and there's also bits and pieces of my Jewish heritage that I kind of gained, and the only reason why I really got proud about that was because when I was in jail, everyone was seeing a pastor and a reverend to get out of, like, the pod, and then I'm like, well, I'll see a rabbi. So I did it kind of out of spite, and then when I started touring with Matisyahu, because my name was Kosha Dillz, everyone's like, oh, you're Jewish, and you should, next thing you know, I'm surrounded by, like, a lot of religious Jews, like, all of a sudden, and I'm like, what the fuck, this is wild. I just want to rap. I just like rapping.
So you chose Kosha, how did you choose Kosha Dillz then? I don't understand, because automatically when I saw Kosha Dillz, it was like, maybe because it was Kosha, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, like Jewish rapper, man. That's different, you know?
Yeah, but it has a street connotation to it because it's like Kosha Dillz and Kosha Dillz, and it's like pickle. So it's a sexual reference. I came up with the idea when I was 17. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
So what do 17-year-old kids think about? Dills and ball. Like, my other buddy was named Yak Balls, and I was Kosha Dillz, and we were like,
got it.
Together. Yeah, and my MySpace was Kosha Dillz in your mouth. And everything came from, like, rappers. Like, main goal from starting off was like, yeah, suck my, you know what I mean? Like, that was our main goal 20 years. And if you go back into history of rap and listen to that, someone who doesn't listen to rap now will be like, oh, that's, I don't like rap. You know, rap now isn't like that anymore, really. Rap now is way more respectful. And if it's not respectful, it's over the edge with it's not respectful for the purpose of making it go meme-worthy and blowing up. But everything that I make is a real reflection of me in some certain piece,
That's
you know?
cool, man.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's probably hindered my growth, you know what I mean? And that's as a career, because people want to put things into a box, right? They're like, oh, he's in recovery. We put him in the recovery magazine. He's Jewish. We put him with the Jewish thing. And he's, you know, this, so he's going to be that. But that really doesn't describe, like, a true artist, you know? So the true artist is, like, always learning. I'm always thinking of new things I want to do, and I want to do them because that's what I want to do.
So what's on the horizon for you? What kind of stuff are you thinking that do you know, or is it just kind of still just flowing, or what?
Yeah, my new album is called Nobody Cares Except You, you know? It's definitely a more reflective piece of me growing older and having a lot more recovery influence in my music. A lot of other stuff that you might be able to dig up on me, if you just write Kosha Dillz, you'll see my album that charted on Billboard was called What I Do All Day in Pickle, and it was really has no meaning. It was basically a spoof off Andy Warhol's Velvet Underground and Nico, and I sold a lot of copies on tour with Matisyahu in 311. I did a big song with Matisyahu called Dodging Bullets that was sort of, and it's sort of like a anti, you know, people hating Israel, sort of one of those revolutionary songs. It was like an anti-that song, but it was dodging bullets in personal life. And then I have like the Spanish and Hebrew thing, and I always just liked doing that on all of my albums that had nothing to do with it, just to be like a big F-you to anyone that said, you can't do that, you should make it all in this. No, I'm going to do whatever I want, whenever I want it.
Yeah.
And, sorry, real quick, I'm not sure if I lost you here.
I can hear you. There you go.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do whatever I want when I want it. Very addict mentality, and I'm going to release
So
it.
are you, when you go to Israel?
I had no record label doing anything for me, so I was releasing everything on my own, and I made my own business. And this is coming from somebody that has so many felonies, I can't get a regular job, can't go into Canada, still couldn't get a job as a teacher. And this is with 14, 15 years clean, and, you know, touring the world, having a TED Talk, and doing massive things for other people as a clean member of society, yet I still, you know, so I work for myself. So, I always think that, like, on an artistic level, I really want to incorporate, you know, the struggle of Jewish people with the struggle of personal recovery and addiction. There's a really big similarity between slavery from, like, Passover, the holiday, and being a personal slave to your addictions. And there's a real big concept of that in the Jewish world that I'm just into in general. And I think it really intrigues me. And I'm moving to Israel and going to meetings and speaking another language versus recovering in English versus recovering in Spanish or Hebrew. It's mind-blowing the way your mind works to sort of know that this is a universal issue. Addiction, a mental illness is a universal problem. And it exists in every extreme format that's covered by the news daily but never really talked about. So, you know, I'm proud that it's really important for me to stay clean as an artist, even if I never become worldly, massively pop famous.
Nice.
But I think people are gonna be like, wow, because you can't tell my story unless you talk to me now. And now that you'll listen to this interview and then go into the music, they'll be like, well, that's kind of recovery related, but, like, the song is not about recovery, but there's little hints and pieces, you know, and you know, it's up to me, though, to tell my story, you know, so I can't really complain. So I always complain about, like, why doesn't anyone respect me the way I want them to know my story? I'm like, well, it's your fault that you never properly told it. Because I listened to Macklemore, and I'm like, well, we have the kind of same story. Why is his thing? You know, you look as an artist, you're always comparing it's a thing called compare and despair, right? When you, like, compare yourself to other people and you see them become, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And one, everyone deserves what they get. I don't, especially in music, we all work hard, but, you know, it's up to me to tell my story. It's not up to anyone else, you know? So when I get the opportunity to, I want to tell, like, yeah, I was selling cemetery plots and cocaine and door to door and delivering.
That's hilarious.
And those are the only drugs, and those are the only jobs I've ever had, and I lifeguarded. And ever since then, I've rapped.
Wow. Well, I mean, that right there says a lot, though, man. I mean, as we're talking, I'm like, okay, so for however long you've been in it obviously a while and able to you know, live, and you're not, it's like you're homeless or something, like you're traveling around. But
yeah, man, I live a nice life.
There's a book that I got turned on to about a year ago, and a real famous, like, podcast and whatnot. It's called, but it's by a couple of Navy SEALs. It's called Extreme Ownership, and recommend.
Sounds amazing already.
It's so badass. It helped me out a ton. And here's kind of the premise of it, without going too much into it. But if anybody's, like, looking it up, go get it on Amazon, get it on audio, listen to it. It's especially I got a lot of respect for the military and people that serve, and I think SEALs are just freaking superhero badasses, you know.
Me too.
And
only other thing, I wish I was in the military.
Me too. I never was in the military. I regret that. I wish that I would have been. I tried at one time. But the premise of Extreme Ownership is everything is your fault. So, I mean, maybe it sounds obviously pretty visceral. It's meant to be a little bit provocative. But the whole thing is you are exactly where you are based on every single decision. And you could have made different decisions along the way that led you to a different spot. If your house got blown up by a hurricane or something, you could have lived somewhere else. I mean, it sucks, but you could have lived somewhere else. And the whole thing that I like about it is it actually gives you a feeling of control, which is somebody that's had a challenge in my life with depression and things like that. It really comes from a loss of a sense of control. And so the philosophy that I've adopted around that is I control everything that I can, or at least it's still even it's not even a real control, but I'll go to the gym, I'll do this, I can control what I eat or when I eat or how. The things that I can control, I control, and then the rest I just let it kind of go. but I like it because it gives you power and it gives you ownership of where you're at. And I think the whole idea, like, yeah, no, it's your fault. I was this and I was that, and you never, and why the fuck, and it's not fair, and all this kind of
shooting the blame thrower, as they call it.
Yeah, man. So tell me a little bit about, you mentioned, first of all, that's kick-ass that you have a TED Talk. I didn't know that. I'm going to go look it up. It'll be somewhere in this feature here. Tell me a little bit about, like you mentioned, anxiety and depression, something I can relate to. What's your recipe for that? I mean, do you medicate? What do you do?
Well, just so you guys know, when I say clean, I don't do any drugs, no drinking. I don't do no CBD. I don't do no kombucha. I just want to let you guys know. Some people think that's cool. For me, it's not, because I have such OCD that I'd probably, like, who knows, I'd be like, you guys ready to get it.
OD on kombucha, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to, like, I know how it tastes. I tasted it by mistake once, and everyone's like, oh, I'm like, never again. And there's plenty of great things to drink. Water, juice, grapes. We could go down a list of all the great things to drink. I also was on Lexapro for probably like 2008, 2009 till just recently, and I just got off of it about 2 months ago. So I got re-examined by a psych person, and because I suffer from anxiety and depression, and I probably lost a lot of serotonin from doing acid and mushrooms and doing blow for nights on end, and probably from my whole family dying in the fucking Holocaust, or my family fighting in all the wars of Israel, and coming from the family that we come from and the lines of families before. I'm probably fucked up.
Yeah.
That's it.
We all are,
But I decided that I want to feel, and I said, listen, someone once told me, well, your lifestyle is so crazy over here and you're traveling. I said, I don't want to be forced to take medicine, because of my lifestyle. I want to be forced to take medicine because I really need it to operate, and I need it to live an operational life. Now, I'm going to get off of it, and if I don't have to if I feel like I'm inoperable, I'll get on different medicine or whatever. So,
yeah.
But I exercise. I even have a song called Exercise. It's on Spotify. Ding.
I saw it on your website. It's cool. Yeah. It's pretty funny, too, actually.
It's a fun song, man, and I love performing it, and people love it. But exercise is big because I wrestled my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
I know what it feels like. My brother is a strength trainer, Underground Strength Gym on Instagram, Rami Even-Esh, really big in strength training. And my other brother teaches Krav Maga to Orthodox Jewish kids, Shomer.
Now that's badass.
Yeah, and he was like, so my father, like, we know the power of exercise in our family. Big thing. Sleep, big thing. Being a giving and good person, big thing.
Yeah.
This literally getting out of myself and, like, changing roles from Kosha Dillz to Rami and de-rolling from, all right, I'm done performing. And it's been, recently I've seen certain situations dealing with drunk people at a show, trying to sell merchandise to people, and they're not going to buy anything, and trying not to go into that mode where I'm really intense. I have it really good. So gratitude I'm part of a gratitude list that has over 40,000 email exchanges over the past years from my sponsorship family. And these things help. Simple shit, man, like good sleep, getting off your phone all the time. I'll tell you how long getting off your phone has worked for me. My original spiritual guider now, maybe, but one of my OG sponsors and friends gave me a detox regimen off of MySpace. So for all those that are dealing with Instagram, scrolling till you're out of controlling like this all day and liking and commenting and obsessing over that, this has been going around for a long time, and like the internet, dude, I was being like that in AOL chat rooms in there for like 10 hours, So as time has gone on, like I told you through rap, how my whole rap thing has changed, like the same things apply to all the areas of the internet for me, because it's something I use to take out of myself and it takes from our real relationship of me to you as a human. And people do it all the time. Detoxes. Jewish people that are Orthodox do it every week, called Shabbat, and they just turn off the phone and all electronics for a whole day. And
I think there's a lot to that, man. You know that in Silicon Valley they say that all of the top guys at Google, Facebook, everything, Apple, all the top people, their kids all go to schools that are all like
electronic free,
and they know, dude. These people know that when you post something on social, that it releases something, and then coming back, you get these little micro hits of validation that, oh, somebody liked that, oh, somebody liked that, oh, they didn't like that, or oh, they liked that, all right? So it becomes very enslaving. And I think that that there's a, very addictive, the internet addiction, social media addiction, but just the whole idea that you have to actually have validation externally. Personally, I think it should be spiritual for yourself, or take a walk, or how your real relationships with people. It's sad when you go to a restaurant and you see a family and everybody's sitting there on their phone, man, like they're not even interacting,
And honestly, for other people, if they want to do that, that's okay. But for me, it's really bad for me personally. I like to speak on my personal experience with it.
Yeah, I think so. But and first of all,
I definitely wouldn't be able to talk to you. It's hard enough for me to pay attention, and I'm looking at my phone, holding it. But if this was maybe something else, I might be looking at my phone, but I'm looking at doing the interview.
Yeah.
And also I want to say running has been really helpful to me.
Yeah.
Running, because I'm thinking so much about.
Do you meditate? Do you meditate or pray?
I'm not really good at meditating or prayers, but I started a project called Notes in the Wall, which is in Jerusalem, and
I saw that.
I go to the Wailing Wall of Jerusalem, which is basically like the holiest place in the world for Jewish people, besides maybe a couple other places. But in general, it's a very holy place, and anyone could go there and put a prayer in the wall. And there's a place that keeps all the prayers of the wall, and people face this. They pray all around the world, and they face this wall, face Israel, So I write a note for anyone, because I say, hey, I'm bad at praying, so I will put your prayer in this wall. And to see how it helps other people, it's mind-blowing, because it's so easy for me to do it for other people, but it's so hard for me to do it for myself, to have any resonance. So, it's a little project I did, and look, what would you know, me not thinking about myself makes me feel so much better.
Doesn't it? It really does. When I haven't in a while, but a couple of years ago, my son and I used to go and volunteer at a homeless shelter for teenagers. And we'd talk about stuff as we drive over, to the inner city and say, hey, this is all about them, and somebody slept under a bridge last night or whatnot like that. And I realized, it made me feel really good to serve. And the thing I came to realize is, people go, oh, wow, that's really cool that you did that, or something that they know. And I came to realize I actually not even doing it for them. It makes me feel good. It's kind of funny because you'd be like, oh, you're such a selfless person, but the true thing, I think, is serving other people and giving a shit and caring about other people, saying the things that you should say to people, not holding back on stuff, and just being of service and being a good, kind person. It makes us feel good. So it's not really even selfless. It actually still is selfish, but this is, I think, how we're designed, is we're supposed to be edifying, generous, kind, and of service to other people. That's my opinion.
Yeah, man. It's kind of interesting, on Christmas or Thanksgiving, everyone or there's a lot of people want to volunteer because it makes them feel better. When there's a hurricane, everyone all of a sudden wants to give all their clothes away. But I think to get into the mind state of doing stuff for other people, even a little bit, and I found that this would work for me, that prayers in the wall thing is it's great for me because it's minimal effort for me, and it's honestly 10 times more valuable that people can't actually do. People could volunteer at a soup kitchen, but this is I don't know. It's a very
I think it's cool, man.
Useful. Because people would never. It's an expensive journey just to go to Israel to go to that place. So the fact that I would go do it for other people is, I don't know.
So when are you moving there? When are you going to have your, when is it going to be your, when are you
my
going to
my official move date is September 10th, but I've been going back and forth for a while, but essentially like recognized by the government.
So right now you're kind of LA and Tel Aviv, and then later you'll be like Tel Aviv and LA.
Yeah. At least, yeah. And you know what happened? I felt that I was afraid of doing things my whole career and my whole life. And I always wanted to, when I was going to jail, I was supposed to be going to the military in Israel. So I said, and then I was just like, I'm recovering. And people were like, well, you're fighting a different battle. And I was like, you know what, man? I don't want to live my whole life waiting to do something I wanted to do again, because I've already been waiting like my whole life to do it anyway. Because I felt the same way, 8 years ago. I'm like, I want to do this, and everyone's like, you'll never do it. And if you tell me that I'll never do it, that's the one way to tell an addict to get something done.
What do you predict for your career as you relocate from like the heart of entertainment to somewhere that's not that known for that kind of thing?
That part. Well, one, someone said to me that, like New York and LA are the center of the world, and someone else said, yeah, but Israel is the center of the universe. Like, oh shit. Because everyone who goes there is having a crazy experience on a spiritual level. And listen, Tel Aviv is not a spiritual city, but it's so crazy, because what people perceive of it is that, like, when you got to Israel and you're like, oh, I'm moving to Tel Aviv, everyone's like, wow. No one that's like spiritual would live in Tel Aviv. They would go to Jerusalem, you know what I mean? And it's the only place in the world where there's a mental health condition that people think they are God, which is so funny being in recovery, because, that's a crazy thing to think you're God, because you're not, but
right.
People having such an amazing experience there that they sort of like trip out on the air. Not even drugs, man. So like it's really interesting. I've been to every state in America, and through recovery, I've been to every state in America through my music. And anytime I go to a state, I pick up all the R's. Do you know what the R's are?
No.
Record stores, rappers, rock bands, rehabs, rabbis. Those are all the people I contact. So I go to a meeting, I go to a record store, I look up all the local bands and rappers, and then look up whatever rabbi is, and I invite everyone to the show, because it's like part of my life, you know what I mean? And everywhere I've gone, when I go to Israel, it's just like a different experience, just because I've always wanted to. My first language was Hebrew. And this is like the benefit of recovery. So recovery, you get clean, and now what, right? So you're like, okay, I thought I was going to be rich and this, that, and everything happens really quick in the first 2 years. And then all these other things that you've kind of internalized your whole life, you're like, wow, now I've been so successful at staying clean for 15 years, I need to start failing at things again. So I'm like, I'm going to go move to Israel and see what it's like. And I'm going to fail. I don't want to live and die alone in Los Angeles and never be in a relationship. I'd rather live 3 failed relationships than 0 successful relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I was watching a TED Talk the other day, came across, and it was actually on anxiety. Somebody was on anxiety. It was from a researcher, and I'm going to be interviewing her. And she cited somebody else's work, but a lot of the talk was on something. She said, do it badly. So you'll get kind of analysis paralysis, and should I do this? Is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? Or what should I do this, that, and the other? And they're like, just take the premise of do something badly, and then if you do it badly, I mean, you get what you set out to do, but then usually, of course, it's like, oh, wow, like it turned out like way better. So the whole idea, I'd say, yeah, man, like go to Tel Aviv. What happens if it doesn't work out? Well, I guess you move back, or something. I mean,
Yeah, no, dude, I set it up. So I wanted to carve out my perfect life. My perfect life, when I went to the immigration interview, it was like, oh, everyone wants to live half a year in Israel and half a year in L.A., right? Because it sounds like I'll just go to L.A. for work and live in Israel. And it's kind of like, ooh, wow, that sounds really sexy, But so I'm like, okay, let's see if someone will rent out my place in L.A. and I'll take the money from there and go to Israel. And I'm like, if that works, that works. If it doesn't work, you get rid of a place. And listen, do you sell your car? Do you I mean, life is, you know, you start out in that struggle we talked about of like, wow, all the odds are against you. You're an ex-convict and you're a drug addict. And then you get clean, and now you're on tour with Snoop Dogg and Modest Yahoo and playing for thousands. And then what? So it's like, yo, and all your friends got big, and you're like, okay, and then what? And now I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about my future. I'm like in my 30s, so now I'm thinking, okay, what about my 40s? Where do I want to be? What can I do? And just like you said, someone said, oh, man, you want to live? Okay, then go live. You know, you want to write a book? Don't worry about writing the best book. Write a bad book first. Sell your bad book. And I have a friend named Hal who's, you know, he wrote a bad book, and then he wrote a good book, and then he wrote the best book that's been a really big seller.
I love that.
And I have a movie, and I said, let's make a bad movie, because my bad movie features the RZA, features DMX, features Macaulay Culkin, features Asher Roth, features raps with A$AP Rocky, features Malcolm, like, you know, all these little video clips that I have that'll be in this movie with all these people, and let's make a really shitty movie and tour it.
Right.
And have good conversations about my shitty movie. And then someone from a real good movie that really knows how to make a movie will put me in this movie.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll just show you like this. Like, I was supposed to be in Israel, so I scheduled a festival that I just played. It was called the Unity Tribe Festival. Shout out to you guys. And this was a festival, and I want to play. Listen, I just did a guest appearance at Coachella. I did a guest appearance at Bottle Rock. I was named Variety Magazine's top act at South by Southwest, one of the biggest festivals in the world. And I wanted to play this festival in Israel because it's what I wanted to do. I was supposed to be living there, but I didn't get approved yet. So I bought a ticket to fly back to Israel to play this festival that really underpaid me, because I wanted to do it and because I wanted to keep my word, which I thought was a good attribute to have, keeping your word. You know,
for sure.
Anyone out there who thinks it's a bad thing, it's a good thing. So it would cost me money to keep my word, but I did it anyway. And I got a call while I was there randomly to end up being in this Vice documentary with Nassim Black, who's like a Black Orthodox Jewish converted rapper from Seattle, where you're from.
Come on.
This is the best part. And that's probably going to be really life-changing for me. And I guess that what I keep circling back to is when you do what you like, your heart really follows, especially in recovery, no one could say anything bad about that. You know what I mean? Like, people could say bad things about everything else, but like when you're willing to fail and put it all on the line, I know what works because I've been doing it for 15 years, and I know I could go get a job and I could rap around the country doing shows for, you know, $500 or $1,000 and keep doing that. But let's do something different, you know, because I'm single. I don't have any kids. Like, you know, I have the ability.
So if you're not married and kids, man, you know, why not? Now's the time.
Yeah, and not everyone has that opportunity, and I do. So I don't want to look back and say, you know, you could have done it and you didn't, because I'm already looking back and like, oh man, what made the difference between you and those other artists, you know? And those guys might have spent more money in this area, and this is something I could do. And by literally putting myself over there, I separate myself from everybody else, and I'm excited. It's like a new world of recovery. It's like you're going to meetings in bomb shelters, and you're speaking in another language, and you're trying to learn how to share your emotions in a new language that you're learning again. And
I think it's totally cool, man. I think it's totally cool. I think the way to approach life, the best way, from particularly opposite of anxiety and depression and all this, like things that are external, out of control, is really look at it like an adventure, and to kind of think to yourself like, okay, like everything's going to turn out okay in the end, and stuff that's not happening the way that I think or that I want or I would want. These are just plot twists that make things kind of interesting. So if you just kind of go along like you're some character in the Lord of the Rings or something like that, you're like on some kind of quest or something about learning and meeting, and who might, like, you can't meet the people that you would meet or that you will meet in Israel. You can't meet them from here. So you have to, now you're going to place yourself in a river or a stream where you got a whole different access to people like that. I think great things are going to happen, man. That sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, man, and like whenever people want to come visit, they'll know that I'll be out there, you know, and I help to show them around. It's a thing, because everyone always comes to LA but then people get tired of LA, and this is a big concept for people in recovery because like, you know, a lot of the programs are started out here on the West Coast. I moved from New Jersey. I was obsessed with going to California. Even my first record was called Harry Chest to Hollywood, and then I made an album called Beverly Dillz. All right, and then so like, I had a song called LA-ish. These were things I just envisioned in my life because I wanted to go to the West Coast, and I'm still going to come here, and I'm still going to be here. But I always wanted to return to Israel, where my family's from, and they built a house. And I was like, yo, I'm definitely going to do this, and the only one that's stopping me is me. And I said, so what did I start doing? I started, what can I do today? I started fill out this form.
Exactly.
Fill that out. And it's so scary. And when I got the email that says, okay, which flight do you want? We're flying you over there for free. The organization like that does the immigration, they give you a one-way ticket. And I'm like, I don't want to pick it. I'm afraid. I'm scared. Like, this is stupid. You're stupid. You should stay in Koreatown forever. You should stay in New Jersey and just, I don't know, do the same shit you've always been doing. And you shouldn't go play festivals where there's 100 people. You just did Coachella, whatever. You know what I mean? All those things are coming to mind. And you're like, you know what, man? Like, this is going to not only change you, it's going to inspire everyone else. Like, just don't be so selfish for once. Just don't be a selfish son of a bitch, Rami. Like, go and do something you actually wanted to do for yourself. And you know how important it is. It's ironic because on a level of who I am as an identity through an artist and as Rami, like as my name is Rami Even-Esh, like it's an Israeli name, like it's inspiring a whole other group of people, just like the recovery is. But the recovery, for me to be in recovery, I need to stay fresh. So I think, like, if I stayed here, like, not to say who knows if I would stay clean or not, but I think this is it's exciting, my recovery, because I'm starting all over again, and I want to do it. You know what I mean? And I know it's challenging to me because I'm having dreams about, like, getting high, and it's very scary to me. So I think, you know, the gift of recovery is when I got high, I took the same road. I'm using my finger going across the screen, and I drove the same way, this way, and this way to avoid the cops, and then I came back here. And in recovery, I'm like, I am, like, going there. And then I was in a car in Israel going to the airport, and I met a guy from the Congo, and he was from Belgium. And I'm like, bro, I'm about to go visit this guy. Give me your contact. Like, he's like, visit me in Africa. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, fuck, man, I'm about to visit this dude. You know what I mean? And then people are going to, and who knows who I'll meet there. And I think
life's an adventure, man.
Yeah, life is an adventure, man. And it's a choose your own adventure book. And those were my favorite books growing up, man. And like, I'm an English major that cheated his way through college high on drugs and mastered cliff notes and summaries to write essays. So for me to sit down and read a book on how to choose your own adventure, it's given me a new spark of life, man. And like, that's how I stay clean. It's like I need to mix it up, or else I'm going to die stagnant, you know? So for me, getting off medicine isn't about whether you should get off medicine or someone's watching this. It's like, I was always thinking about that. I said, you know what? I'm willing to stay on medicine, but I'm only willing to stay on medicine if I'm going to get off of it and see how my life feels like without it. Because I was, you know, I ended up taking medicine and never even seeing a psychiatrist. I just ended up getting it refilled all the time. And I thought, like, man, something's, like, not kosher about this. And I'm the first one to admit that I don't work a, you know, good recovery program, and I'm most likely, you know, acting out on a lot of issues. So I need to be, like, to say, hey, you know, I'm fucking up, and I really want to try things differently. And that's how it's been for me with long-term recovery. You know, in the beginning, it was very, like, wow, look at what everything has got, me being clean has gotten me. I was touring with Snoop Dogg in Europe with 4 years clean and 5 years clean, and I'm like, wow, it's just different experience, because then you're supposed to sort of be like keeping it in. Now I'm like, how do I stay in forever? You know, this is like a life journey.
Yeah, but you know, obviously in terms of not being good at recovery, if you could be sober today, you could be sober tomorrow. I mean, the whole, it's so cliche in the thing about one day at a time, and that's really what it is, and it stacks up. And so I look at it, I mean, think about the person that's got 15 days or 1 day or no days, and they're like, dang, man, this guy's got 15 years, dude. So I think that's too self-deprecating to go, yeah, man, I'm probably not good at it. I mean, we're never going to be perfect. So life's a journey. It's all, we're messed up and stuff like that, but I think it's way cool. So how do people get back to you? How do they check? We'll have links and stuff, but just what for the video here, like what's the best way? Like,
I hope it made sense what we were talking about.
Yeah, man,
so
it's great.
I was just going for it, man.
Great.
Instagram is a great way to just get a hold of me, or Twitter, Facebook. Everything is Kosha Dillz, KOSHADILLZ. YouTube and Spotify to listen to music. Apple Music, it's KOSHADILLZ. The best way, if you ever want to email me, rapperfriends@gmail.com, rapperfriends@gmail.com. I also, also help people get into programs. I know you said that we know, obviously, your brother from SOBA. My old roommate went from, working at a rehab to setting one up, and he left where we live in Koreatown and now has this place called Forward Recovery. So I started helping some people get in to recovery places and stuff, which has been cool. And I think it's going to be even bigger for me when I go out to Israel, because I'm going to be 10 hours ahead of America in LA and 7 hours ahead of New York. So I'll be like kind of.
There's places in Israel too, though. Now there's places in Israel.
Yeah, there's places in Israel, and it's really amazing that there's people. It's really interesting how everyone, from being from New Jersey, everyone went to Florida, and everyone goes to California. And also, I forgot to tell you guys that, like, the only other job on top of the cemetery plots and the lifeguarding and the pizza delivery was working at the rehab that I went to. Yeah, man. Endeavor. Shout out to Keyport, New Jersey.
That's funny, man.
I really love the recovery world because it's like, it's interesting. I have so much experience in it. Sometimes I forget.
15 years, man. 15 years, dude.
Help, I guess ask me. I guess why not? If you need help in music or DIY self-startup or how to end up in a rehab, hit me up.
Nice. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the time, bro. It was a lot of fun. I think you're really cool. I'm glad that I got a chance to meet you. Big affirmation.
What baseball jersey is that behind you, by the way?
What's that?
The baseball jersey behind you.
No, that's my karate. That's my from way back in the day. That's my taekwondo. My wife put it in the frame. My black belt and all that. So.
You still do taekwondo?
Way back in the day, I was a second degree, and I had a school and stuff like that. Taught little kids and stuff. I really liked it. I'm a little old now for kind of like I don't really feel like getting beat on too much. You know?
I love, honestly though, for me when I'm stressed out, man, there's nothing like a good little roll around on a wrestling mat with good ass kicking with some like top-notch college wrestlers that just whoop on.
That's great, man.
Yeah, good workout, man. Really just brings me down.
I love it. I like to sweat. I like to release dopamine. I like to look in the mirror and go, yeah, man, I'm not fat anymore. I like that. The wife likes it. I mean,
and performing for me is my big high, man. Like honestly, if you ever come see a show, and I really hope you come. We hang out when you see me in Seattle,
yeah, man.
or Yakima, or Spokane, or wherever we'll go to. Just performing in general for me is a great joy, and I think like if any of you guys are just interested in seeing what it's like, you could just look on YouTube or my Instagram. Even on my Instagram live right now, you can see the show from last night. When this comes out, it probably won't be there, but I really love rapping, man. Like on such a core level for me, it's such a release, and it works. And I gotta say, it's where I feel at home is on stage. So I'm looking for a stage. So I mean, if any of you guys have stages out there, like I said, I just flew out to Israel to play for like 40 people at a 100-person festival in the desert, to take a financial loss because I wanted to do it. And like I said, it changed my life. Honestly, it was so awesome. And, I know it's going to get bigger, and I'm looking forward to coming back and doing an interview when I'm, like, wildly...
Cool, we'll do another one, man.
Like a recovery out there,
Yeah, we'll do another one for sure, man. A lot of fun. You got a lot of info. You're cool, self-deprecating, interesting, all good stuff, man. Well, this has been another great interview, fun interview by Recovery Today Magazine, recoverytodaymagazine.com, with my new friend Kosha Dillz. And if you hang on just a second, I'll cut out on the recording. We can chat for just a minute. So hang on.